Hey, Mom Nation. Welcome to Mental Wealth with Laura Wood and Katie Holly Lambert, where we talk through generational trauma so we can leave a new legacy for our children. Counselor Laura is with Benevieri Counseling out of Chandler, Arizona, and you can find her on Facebook, on the web, or by the link in the show notes. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Mental Wealth, where what do we do here, Laura? Laura is here with me each and every month, and she is helping us address our past trauma, right? Like address that stuff that we deal with that is maybe holding us back from opportunities or maybe dragging us down. So that way we don't pass that on like luggage to our children.
Yes, that is what we do here. We dig into what's happening now and how our past experiences probably influenced where we are, how we got here, and what it is that, what are those quote unquote blocking beliefs that are holding us back. I have a, a billion ideas of blocking beliefs for our topic today that we can really start talking about. Is those things inside that we think are true, but they're not true. They're beliefs about ourselves that we've created through our experiences. So, or that we should say, our experiences have created for us, and they are sort of the foundation and framework for everything we think about what we can and cannot do.
And sometimes I think it's really hard or can be really hard to see those things when you're living in it, when perhaps that's been your mindset or your belief system for X amount of years, right? And so what I
Absolutely.
love about this show is that we do chat through those things.
Mm.
And it can be, I feel for me, it is really helpful to sort of shed some light on those beliefs that really just might not be serving us.
Yeah, absolutely. They are hard to spot, right? Because we believe them to be true. Why would we
Right.
question them?
Exactly.
They're
So,
just things we accept as fact.
right. So, how would we know unless we talk about them, unless we share experiences with one another? And that's what I really love about what we do here, because not only do we talk about things that are trending mental health wise, right?
Hmm.
But we also talk through our own situations, and I appreciate how vulnerable you
Mm.
become in some parts of our episode, and you talk about yourself,
Hmm.
and I do the same. And honestly, that's quite therapeutic for me. And I know that it's very helpful for our
Yeah.
audience members and those out there because they tell me, they share it with me.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why I really love what we do. And then also with the Mom Nation crowd, with our
Mm.
audience out there, I love talking through the different posts that we see from time to time,
Mhm.
especially if it's a trending issue, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I
I
know
love
that
that.
it's helpful to them.
I think so. I mean, I hope so, right? If you can hear a different perspective and some different questions that we ask or different experiences that maybe you and I both have probably already had in
Yeah.
some aspect of our lives that taught us something. And, no one knows everything, but you don't know what you don't know. And it's good to crowdsource some of this stuff.
Totally agree. So today we are talking about an anonymous post from the Mom Nation Arizona group. This one came out just last month, so it's pretty new. Let me share my screen here. Came out on March 5th, and this anonymous member shared this. Feeling lost, I hate my job. I'm taking a college class, and I hate that too. I don't do anything enjoyable. I went to a school today to look into a 2-year program. I could quit and go to school full time with the help of my husband, doing something I really want to do, ultrasound tech. But the school has a 3-year waiting list. I got my hopes up and did all this research, envisioned my school life, all for it to be thrown out the window. I'm in my 30s. I don't want to wait 3 years. I'm at a loss. I love my family, but my day to day life has to change. I'm so unhappy. I
Mm.
don't know what to do. I can feel the stuck.
So much stuff. Oof. I mean, one of the things that stands out to me here is like, I love my family, but my day-to-day life has to change. And I just think as moms, we really that's the what about meism that I kind of talk about sometimes, where it's like, okay, so I've done all this stuff. I've taken care of everybody. I've sacrificed myself. And what about me?
Yeah.
When is my turn? When is it someone gonna look out for me and something gonna go right for me? And you know what I mean? I just think that's such a relatable feeling. And like I lived like that for a long time.
Right. Especially when you're a single mom, right?
Oh, geez,
Like what you
Louise.
experienced, because there's no help. There's no one. I mean, I know that you had people
Right.
around you that loved you and supported you,
Of
but
course.
as far as somebody right there in the trenches.
Yeah, it all lands on me, right? And I raised my kids by myself for 15 years and am still doing that. That's ongoing. That's an ongoing process that is still occurring. And I just think I remember, just feeling like, what the heck? Is this all there is?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna have to do this forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And then what? Right? Like, what about me? Ah, like screaming, and I think that I feel that, I hear that from this mom in here, um and just kind of, and then that feeling lost, like, she's saying I got my hopes up and then I just everything blew up and I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it feels that way, right? Like it feels like, well, it's just that's it, didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to keep doing what I'm doing and that's the worst. And that's one of those blocking beliefs that feels true, right? It's like I feel like that's the end of the line.
Like, is this a sign? Maybe I
Right.
shouldn't go this route.
Right. Or even just like there's nothing, there's no other options. Like I don't have more choices. That's another blocking belief. Like I don't have more choices. And that's not, this is now we're adding context, right? Because this isn't quoted here, but,
Right.
like sometimes it feels like we don't have more options. We don't have other choices. We're backed against the wall. We're sort of, um, we're running out of things and we'll never find the thing that we want.
Mm-hmm.
And so that never, anytime we have an always or a never in our life, that's a blocking belief, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
nothing is always, nothing is never. Everything is sometimes maybe, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everything is optional, and it's never never, right? And so I wonder if this mom, I'm hoping that these comments are encouragement and just support, like, wow, I feel you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, that's what I want to say is like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened. And I feel you just feeling like fed up and tired and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to kind of give up. And so then that's when I think of resilience and I think about, and we can sit and vent about this, right? And we can like go through this pain together and I can sit with you and I can absorb this pain with you and we can share our struggles and just like that's BS and yell and be mad and be sad and be hurt and be disappointed and be, you know, all the things that we feel. And then we can say, okay, and then there's more choices, right?
Mm-hmm. Then we can brainstorm.
Then we can brainstorm, right? But we can't skip either one of those steps. We need both. We need
Mm-hmm.
the moment to vent. And I feel that in this moment. I feel like from her that some of this is venting, right?
Yeah.
Because she's saying, I'm lost. I need support right now. She's doing a reach. This is what I call a reach. She's reaching out for support and we're reaching back. And
Mm-hmm.
those who have commented and loved on her post and said, like, I've got you, like, this is going to be okay. I want to share that with her too and say, like, you know, there are more choices, there are more options. There's a billion schools. Maybe there's another school that doesn't have a wait list that maybe it's just not as well known, or maybe there's something else that is an option that isn't going to take quite so long, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I
Well,
know that there's something out there.
right, but that's hard too, because looking at it from a perspective of a mom that has a job, that has a household, that does all the things that we all do, and maybe she has multiple kids, you only have like this amount of time for yourself to
Yeah.
typically, right, to do that type of research. And so I can understand how maybe feeling defeated
Mm,
at the first go around is a total thing.
yeah,
No,
for
I've been
sure.
there
That's such a good
before.
point. That's such a good point. There is limited time. We have finite resources and, to even have the courage to do what she's already done, which is put herself out there and say,
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm going to explore this opportunity that maybe I've never explored an opportunity for herself. She says she hates her job, right? So I wonder if she got into that job thinking it was something she had to do and she didn't have a lot of choices. Maybe it
Probably.
was, maybe she's hated it for a really long time and she's never looked elsewhere. And now, this very first time that she ever takes a look, and she's like, oh my gosh, now I took this risk and it wasn't even worth it.
Yeah. That can be traumatic.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, that whole thing about the blocking beliefs is like when we have been trained to sacrifice ourselves, that one time that we do reach out and try to do something for ourselves and it doesn't work out, it's like validating,
Yeah.
right? It's validating that belief that like we don't deserve to do stuff like this. We don't
Or we
deserve to have
can't.
happiness. We can't. It's
Yeah.
not for us.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else gets that, but I'm not going to get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a tough one, I feel like, to realize that is a
Mm.
limiting belief, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we there's a lot of information that we're missing, and we don't know what the experiences this mom had
Right.
growing up. And
Right.
maybe having choices and um, being in a career that pleases you wasn't something that she was exposed to by
Mhm.
caretakers in her life.
Yeah. And I think just having a career in general is, especially for a mom, something of a sacrifice and a choice that feels really hard to have to give up time. Like you can't be the best like ever, or the best employee ever and the best mom ever
Right.
and like give 100% of everything you have to both. Like I think when you're a mom and you're raising kids and then you're in a career that you don't even like, it's like not even, you're just like, what am I even doing this for?
Yeah.
Like I'm missing time with my kids, which sucks. And I'm working at a job I hate, which sucks. Like none of it is winning.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's happening too, right? Like, and maybe there's not been that exposure to choices in general, like, or even, let's say not this mom, but anybody who has grown up in a house where we're responsible for other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When we're responsible for other people's emotions, we don't want to let anybody down. And when we don't want to let anybody down, we tend not to speak our mind. And when we carry that shame or blame or like self sacrifice, then we really start to resent people who do stand up for themselves and who do go out and get these things. And then we're like, why do you get that? And I don't get that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's this whole other aspect of unhappiness that sort of creeps in, which is that all these other people get this thing that I want and I don't get it. And so, like, now I'm even more like frustrated and upset and feeling stuck and feeling like I'm just on this like treadmill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's easy to feel defeated when you feel like stuck in on that treadmill, right?
Hmm.
It's easy because it's I feel like it can be difficult to see the way off. Like, how
Yeah.
can we get off of this belt that we're on?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we get into this day-to-day habit of just doing the things, right?
Yeah.
We're just doing the same things every day because we have to. Like you mentioned before, we don't have a lot of time. So we're wanting to change things or we're wanting things to change, but we don't really feel like we have the tools or the resources or the mechanisms or the support or the access to change them.
Or maybe as well as the emotional and mental bandwidth,
Yeah.
because all those things that you just rattled off that she's likely dealing with, that's draining.
Yeah, for sure. It's so draining. And I hear what, one of the things that struck me as well is I'm so unhappy,
Yeah.
you know, and that I'm noticing some maybe depression, right? Like I'm noticing some sense of like just a depression feeling of like just sacrifice and suffering and just like tired. Like sometimes when we are in a depression, we don't have to have depression to be in a depression, right? Like we can sort of be in a rut.
Hmm.
And that's like sort of what I call a depression. Like it's just like a blah, like a low, like a literal depressed, like you're just
Your
kind of
vibe is
deflated.
just, yeah.
Yeah. And so we go through those and we might be in one for a month or in one for a day or in one for a year. Um, and that can be really hard to get out of because of the mental load and because of our day-to-day life that we still have to live and we still have to take care of our kids and we still have to do all these things that help us go forward and just like perform, our tasks or whatever. And so I think that it's important to notice that and like those words, I'm so unhappy. Those are big words.
Mm,
And I think
mm.
we take that really seriously.
I agree. And as you were talking, I got this sense of, is there, could there potentially be a bit of guilt coming in here too?
Sure. Say more
You know,
about that.
you know what I mean? Like, um, maybe I feel one of my limiting beliefs is that I feel that I'm maybe don't deserve to get, do something for myself when I have kids at home and I should
Mm.
just be focused on that and focused on work and focused on the household and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I feel like guilt is I, really, I feel like it affects every single mom I've ever met, one way or another, but that can be very draining and debilitating as well.
I think that's right. I think guilt is such a huge aspect of one's life when we're a parent and when we're trying to take care of others because we're truly responsible for someone else. And that is not a thing that we can be perfect at, right? And when we don't succeed or when we don't do our best, we feel a little guilty or a lot guilty, depending on the situation and depending on our history.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had people in our lives like emotionally immature parents, we talked about that a few episodes back.
Yes,
We could do a part 1,000 on that. We could do a whole podcast on that.
we do.
And
We need to.
So when we have emotionally immature parents, guilt is a huge part of our experience because what's happening is our parents and our caregivers are saying, you're responsible for my happiness.
Right.
And obviously, you can't, as a child, you cannot be responsible for someone else's happiness. You can't keep someone happy. Adults don't always stay happy. Sometimes we're unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're struggling. And so there's guilt that comes into play here. And so it's possible that this mom is feeling guilty for a billion things that are unknown, and when we think about those limiting beliefs, one of the things that I think about are the rights that we have that I teach people like you have the right to say no. You have the right to change your mind. You have the right to put yourself first. You have the right to take your own time, to ask someone to repeat themselves, to
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, have an opinion that differs from someone else's. You have the right to disagree. You have the right to be heard and be respected, regardless of your opinion and your behavior. Those are just fundamental. And those are often the opposite of some of these beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the right to be fulfilled, period.
Right. And I think that is a really tough one for a lot of women.
Hmm.
Why?
I know.
Why are we like that?
Why are we like this?
What? Tell
That's
us,
the name
Laura.
of my other podcast.
That's true.
Why am
That's
I like
funny.
this? No, I mean, I think organic plug in there. But so we are like this because of a billion reasons. One is in our culture. Our culture in our society really puts a lot of responsibility on women to serve others. We're subservient in a lot of ways. And when we're subservient, the underlying sort of message is that you don't have the right to be fulfilled. You don't have the right to live your own life, because if you do, then those who you're serving will suffer. And that's simply not true.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the best thing we can do for our families as women is be happy and fulfilled, because happy and fulfilled moms have happy and fulfilled children, because they don't resent the needs of their children, because they don't need to. But if we're constantly stuffing ourselves down and we're constantly sacrificing ourselves, we will resent our kids for getting the love that they deserve, for needing the love from us, and from burdening us with their needs, with their constancy, with their, with everything. Kids are a lot. That's hard to raise kids.
Yeah, it is.
And if we're unhappy and feeling worn down, and like we're not getting what we need and what we deserve and what we want, we're going to have some resentment towards those who do.
Yeah.
And the culture that we sort of are living in even now is that women are expected to be a lot of things to a lot of folks. And, self-care is like aspirational, or self-care is sort of like a luxury, right? Like, I remember I used to say, I don't have the luxury of feeling my feelings. I don't have the luxury of like getting upset. I don't have the luxury of wanting things. I don't have the luxury. Like, those were the things that I would say when I was run down as a poor single mom who was struggling in almost every way, including mental health. I felt that way and I believed it. I believed it. I thought that was true. And I might have even offered it as advice to somebody else.
Yeah,
Like, you don't have the luxury of that. Like, so get the fuck over it, you know?
exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, that's how you feel sometimes. And I think that's a perfect example of a limiting belief, because I was wrong. That was not true.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't true. And I just didn't know that until someone taught me. And then I was like, oh, I remember and I think I've just said this before on this very podcast, but I remember the very first time my therapist asked me if I knew I had the right to say no.
Interesting. No,
She
I don't
literally
remember
said to
hearing
me,
this.
yeah, she said, does 100% of you know that you have the right to say no? And in that moment, I realized, no, I didn't know that. I had no idea. I didn't know that.
Right.
And once I learned that, something shifted in me. I literally experienced a foundational change in my framework, because that limiting belief no longer existed.
Mm.
So from that day on, I realized I have the right to say no. I don't. And then what does that mean for all these other things? That means I don't have to be everything to everyone. That means it's okay if I say no and I let someone down, because I'm not responsible for holding up all these other people. They're responsible for their own emotions, just like I'm responsible for mine. Nobody's responsible for my emotions.
Right.
So I don't have to take that on. And so I can say no to someone, including my kids, if I need to. And if I want to, just because I want to, I don't even have to have a good reason. And I don't have to explain myself to anyone.
Mm. Say that louder for the ones in the back.
Right?
I see and hear that a lot, and I may be guilty of doing that myself from time to time.
Right? Like, who's going to respond to an invite with, like, no, I'm not feeling like today. No, I don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're going to make up an excuse.
Right.
Nobody just says no for no reason,
Exactly.
because we don't want to bother someone else. We don't want to hurt someone else's feelings. We want to come up with something that's like acceptable enough.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what, ladies? Just the fact that you said no and you don't want to, like, no, thanks. The end.
Yeah. It's perfectly acceptable.
perfectly acceptable. And we need to be better at giving people grace as well as taking it. And so, you know, when we're thinking about our career aspirations, just kind of going back to the theme, we have to know that we deserve to have a fulfilled life, right? That's a major takeaway. And we have to know that we can say no to things if they don't fit into that. And we can be creative and we can problem solve and come up with different solutions and ask more people. And if someone tells you no, think about that from the perspective of maybe not yet.
Right, right.
Or not not this way.
I think that it's easy for people to get offended when they hear the word no, or to take it personally when they hear the word no. And so I feel like there's kind of another side to that too.
Totally.
Where it's okay for me to say it, and it's okay for other people to say it too, and it probably has nothing to do with you personally.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I hear from parents of my kids all the time, my kid clients. A big thing for parents is like a trigger for kids, which is they didn't get what they wanted. I told them no. Because no feels like rejection. No isn't just about, no, you can't have that extra soda. No, you can't stay up an extra 45 minutes. No, you can't have the toy at the store. It's not about the stuff. It's not about the soda, the time, or the toy. It's about the rejection. And so that's why kids get so upset when they're told no, because they feel like they're being rejected. And rejection is the worst.
It is the worst.
Right?
It is.
It's
So
terrible.
how do we help our kids understand that? Like, what's a good kid-sized explanation? I mean, kid size probably depends on your kid size, but a basic kid-size explanation of digging into that feeling so that they're aware of it. Hey, this is a trigger, and maybe sharing why they feel that. And you know what I mean? So that they could understand it.
I mean, one of the things that I always say is, I understand that it doesn't feel good. Like just saying that, right? Like, okay, let's say you're at the grocery store and you're in the checkout and it's like, can I have this thing? Whatever it is.
Just constant.
Every time.
Yeah.
And literally every time. And so we say, no, not today. And then they have a temper tantrum, or they either completely go 0 to 100, which is possible. Or let's say they eke into it, like they're creeping up into something. They're starting a fit. They're starting a stomp. They're starting a whine. They're starting whatever. In that moment, we have a choice. We can say, stop whining. You need to, like, I said no. That's it. That's an option.
Yep.
Or
a popular option.
Popular option. Option B. Option B is you say, I understand it doesn't feel good not to get that thing. The end. That's all you're saying. You're not saying, and we're still, you know what I mean? Like, if you need to say again and we're still not going to get it, like, it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to still have an okay day. Like, but really, I would just say less. Just, I understand it doesn't feel good. And just keep going back to your checkout, do your thing, punch in your rewards number, get your savings and keep it moving.
That makes me feel like, and we've probably talked about this 100 times before, but that makes me feel like when we respond in a heightened and semi-aggressive manner, they're mirroring that. Or maybe it's easier for them to stay at that height because they're mirroring that.
That is interesting. I believe that you're right. Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's enactment. It's a mirroring sort of it's a mutual escalation.
Yeah.
If you want to de-escalate, you have to de-escalate. And that's not always easy, right? That's not always an easy thing to do. So
Right.
now you as an adult, let's say you didn't get these lessons and you got option A instead of option B taught to you as you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then you might have a hard time hearing no or saying no because you don't want that reaction, right?
Yeah.
You don't want that negative reaction. So if you're hearing the word no and you're experiencing a negative reaction, then you say to yourself, I understand it doesn't feel good. Hearing the word no doesn't feel good. I like to get what I want. Who
Right.
doesn't?
Who
Right?
doesn't?
That's just, I like to get what I want. That's a fair thing. And sometimes I get upset if I don't get what I want. I don't always have a temper tantrum, but I mean, it probably happens, right? Like on my worst day, I might
Yeah. Maybe less and less these days. I don't know.
less and less these days. Um, but I can say it's okay for me to not be happy that I didn't get what I want. Like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I hear no, I say, it's okay, it doesn't feel good. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world. I can still have a good day. I can still be okay, even if I didn't get that thing that way from that place,
Mm-hmm.
because I can get a different thing a different way at a different place, or maybe even the same thing. But I have to recognize and like attend to myself in that moment and be like, that wasn't what I wanted. I feel not good. It was
Mm-hmm.
disappointing. It was upsetting. There's a whole bunch of things when things don't go away. And so if we weren't attuned to in that way as children, we're unlikely to know that we can do that to ourselves as adults. And now we know that we can.
Mm-hmm.
And so similarly, when we tell someone else no, we understand it doesn't feel good. So when we get a reaction that is unpleasant, we can say, that makes sense. And just keep it like, yep, okay. If you're dealing with an adult, you can say something like, I understand you're upset and it's not okay to talk to me like that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to take a step back, right? And so if we're dealing with, we could also say that to a medium-sized child or teenager.
Mm-hmm.
A very small child maybe needs most of the time. So we want to de-escalate and let things get settled before we address the problem. So usually when a little kid is kind of in a fit, we don't need to necessarily make the correction until after the fit ends.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's why I kind of say, I understand it doesn't feel good. And then we just leave it. Right. And then we can revisit at a later time when things are going smoothly. Like when we're building with blocks later, we can say, hey, remember at the store when you had that yucky feeling and you called mommy stupid? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that you didn't feel good, but it's not okay to call someone a name that's hurtful. Oh, okay, mom. I won't do that again. Great. Let's keep building our block tower. Whoa, it
Mm-hmm.
crashed down. Right? Like it's just that just happened. Like things are just fine.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean your kid's a sociopath. It doesn't mean your kid is, gonna go off and be a total jerk. Everything's fine.
Yeah. I like that advice a lot. And I feel like it's easier for probably everybody. I was going to say kids, but probably easier for everybody to absorb and understand and learn more in that environment than when they're, feeling spicy.
Hmm. Yeah, when we're feeling escalated, we don't need to be taught a lesson
Right. That's not going to,
because who likes that?
yeah.
I know I don't.
I know I don't.
I know I don't like to be told what I'm doing wrong when I'm in a really terrible mood because guess what? I probably already know
Yeah.
because I recognize that I'm not acting my best and I have a little bit of self-awareness to know that like this doesn't feel good and I regret what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway because I've completely lost control. So telling me about what myself in that moment is not a time where I can really absorb that. And so I need to remove myself from the situation if I'm going to blow up at someone, because that's not okay to do. I'm responsible for my own triggers. I'm responsible for my own stability. So, like, I need to walk away so that I can treat people the way they deserve to be treated. Right. And when I'm feeling really hurt and rejected, I might need a moment to myself to sort of not take that out on other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That doesn't make me a jerk. That makes me self-aware and mindful.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody gets upset. We have upsetting things in our stuff.
It feels so much better to do that,
It really does.
especially when you think about it after and you
Hmm.
don't have an episode that you have to regret. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because remember the guilt?
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't have to feel the guilt. We're probably going to find a way to feel the guilt anyway. Because maybe we're going to say, I feel guilty for even having gotten upset in the first place.
Yeah.
But our feelings are reactions to our external stimuli, period. Our thoughts are reactions to external and internal stimuli. I should have said and internal for feelings too, but you get it.
Yeah.
That's all. They're automatic. They are not chosen. They just exist. We don't have to go with them and we don't have to correct them. We can just choose to engage in them or not.
Well, and obviously with kids it might be a little bit different, but as an adult and you're learning more about yourself, if you feel that negative emotion, would you say that that's a sign to maybe dig a little bit deeper and see, ooh, I got really upset there. Let's figure out why. Let's figure out what that trigger is. You know what I mean? Especially if you want to work on these things and it's not something you enjoy doing. You know what I mean? I suppose some people might.
I mean, usually we don't. Um, most people don't like to explore that stuff. It's hard. Okay, here's the rule about exploring why we got upset. First, get unupset. Do the exploration after you've done whatever you need to do to calm down. So the problem is, the sticking point is that when we're upset, we dive into, we engage with it, we merge with it, and we say, hey, upset feeling, why are you upset right now? What is even going on? Why are you like this? Right? Well, that's only going to tap into upset feelings and bad stuff, negative thoughts, because that's where they live. And so instead, we want to get centered in ourself and grounded to enough to be like, I'm okay. I'm okay enough, let's say. I might not be okay, but like I'm okay enough. I have at least a sense of where I am. My breathing is steady. I've gotten to a place where I'm stable. I'm no longer agitated or feeling whatever I was feeling. So now I can say, all right, what just happened? But in that order, we can't analyze while we're in the distress. And so another thing is, if you don't feel comfortable analyzing ever, then just get grounded and then only analyze in the presence of a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then your therapist office can contain all of the stuff that happens in the therapy office. And the rest of the time, you just are responsible for living your life to the fullest, being as present as you can, taking care of yourself, and being accountable for your own stability outside of session. That's it.
Mm-hmm. I think we've had this conversation quite a bit. I personally feel like I have not met anybody, myself included, that wouldn't benefit from therapy or that it wouldn't be a good idea, right? And so I feel the same way about this mom. And I feel like,
Yeah.
right, like what could that look like for her based on your
Mm-hmm.
experience of what you do? And how could that help her sort of unpack the stuck feeling enough so that she feels like she can wiggle around and make some moves for herself.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone, I would start with just your basic grounding skills, like the ability to find yourself centered again, Find yourself in a place that feels stable and grounded and like present. So like those grounding skills that I use all the time, most of them are time orientation and place orientation. So like, where am I? Like, let me look for three triangles in the room. Let me look for, let me feel my feet on the floor. Like, what is going on in this second, in this little bubble that I'm in right now, in my chair? What color is my chair? What color is this blanket? You know, the texture of the microphone, like just get grounded in the space that you're in. So that's like place orientation. And then time orientation is like, what's the actual month, day, and year? Because we'd be surprised, does 100% of you agree that it is 2024? A lot of the time, the answer is no.
And do you mean that because we often live in the past or the future?
Kind of, yeah. Because we're just not, we're floating around outside of a concept of time and space. Because autopilot doesn't require time or space.
Right, right.
It's just, we're not present. We're sort of floaty. And we don't even realize that. And so when we say it's 2024, that means it's not, 1989.
Ah, shucks.
Or I often remember it being like 2015,
Right.
right? Like it's not then, it's now. And I've learned a lot since then. And then my age, right? Which I'm not going to say out loud right now, but
You don't have
I
to. It's okay. You could say no, Laura.
thank you so much, Katie. So I orient myself to my age. And so I'm a fully grown adult and I've lived for this long and I have this many years worth of experience. And that's not too old, no matter how old it is. And it's not too young, no matter how young it is, to be exactly who and what you are right this second and to take steps to move forward. We're just orienting ourselves like the center of a compass. Someone taught me a grounding skill that helped, that basically she did a demo with me when she was teaching me about a different type of therapy. It was really cool. And it was like she'd kind of walked me through this meditation where she asked me to like imagine that I'm at the center of a compass and like have like the north line kind of extending from me and like I'm like the center, like this oriented center and this really stable place. And so it was like I sort of envisioned like north, south, east, west, whatever. Um and you could even say right, left, up, down, like who cares? But any way that you can kind of remind yourself that you're here and now, that can be stabilizing.
Mm.
And so that's the thing I would do first, which takes several sessions. We learn how to do that over time. And we use examples from our home and from our past in order to say, okay, well, let's take that example and imagine now that we're seeing it from the perspective of here and now, right? Okay, so we're doing that. We're working towards that. We're getting stable. We're doing all these things. And then what I would start to do is I would invite this person to, any person, to examine their sense of themselves. So there's something called a wheel of life. And it's like a pizza or a pie, whatever. And it has these wedges, and each wedge is like a category. Our career, our hobbies, our interests, our family, like our social, all these different things about ourselves, like our nutrition habits, our wellness. And we're filling up that wheel with different things that make us up, that make up who we see ourselves as now, how we are, what we like, right? So we're just choosing things. These aren't necessarily, some of them are characteristics, I guess, but most it's things. It's like things that I like to, that bring me joy in these categories.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, how much of ourselves are we using or suppressing?
Mm-hmm.
Are we accessing these things regularly? Like plants would be on my wheel of life. Am I spending time with plants? Yes. Okay. So I'm in consistency. I'm congruent with my sense of myself
Mm-hmm.
in a positive way. I might have negative beliefs about myself, but I don't want to focus on those. Right now, we're focusing on a positive wheel. We can do an examination of some of the negative stuff, but we have to build something first, right? We have to build the helpful stuff for the negative to then merge into and be supported by.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like our foundation. So these are our load bearing walls, right? So what we want to do is we want to identify things that make us happy, even littly happy. Like, I like the color pink. Do I engage with it enough? I think so, right? Do I have enough things in my view that I think are that are visually appealing? Yes. So there are things in my life that I don't do enough that I want to do more of. Did I realize that until I did the wheel of life? Probably not, right? So we're just assessing like how consistent are we? How congruent are we with our sense of ourselves? And that can help us identify some interests too, ways to spend our time and potentially our career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I haven't done that yet. So now I got to try it. Um, because I can feel how impactful that really can be
Yeah.
and really eye-opening.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'll be trying that one. So thank you for sharing that.
absolutely.
Unfortunately, we're getting close to time.
Oh no.
I know because I wanted to pull one other thing out. Maybe we can do it just like really super quick.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Um, but you touched on it kind of a little bit in this episode-ish, but I feel like this mom feels a little bit defeated and maybe feels as though she's running out of time. She mentions,
Oh
I'm in
yeah.
my 30s. And I can
Mhm.
remember feeling at the, we all know mid 40s here, but I can remember feeling at the end of my 20s, gosh, 30's coming. My goodness, like, did I do all the things that
I
are
do all the
expected of
things.
me or that I even expected of myself
Mhm.
in my 20s? Because, time's a ticking. And I remember feeling like that as I was approaching 40 as well. So I
Yeah.
can really relate with that. I want to give her a really big hug and tell her that she's definitely not at the end of the
So
road.
much time left. Yeah,
There's so much time. But I can completely relate with that.
for sure.
And I can see how that can be, a debilitating feeling.
Yeah. I absolutely can understand that too. And I think, we have these sort of life crises at these stages. I see this with my young kids right now graduating high school.
Yeah.
Like, have I done the things right? And what am I'm supposed to be in this place and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there. And, so it's like we sort of have these beliefs. I'm supposed to be a specific place at this particular time. Like, imagine, but what I think of those as those are those ideas that we have of ourselves at these ages. Those are actually projections of what we thought that age would be like when we were children.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually ask people, like, well, what does 30 look like? And they're like, I don't know, like a suit and a briefcase or some shit, right? I'm like,
Wrinkles, please.
okay, right? Like, yeah, that's because that's what you think of as a kid. Like, that's what
As a
an
kid,
adult looks like.
it's so
And
far
so what
away.
we're doing is if we're not living that, if we don't end up becoming that projected adult, then we start to think, well, I did it wrong. Until we realize, like, where did I get this idea? Oh, this is just what I thought 30 would look like when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't look like that, and that's fine because it looks like this. And I couldn't have known that then because I was a kid and I thought briefcases.
Right. I'm actually quite fond of how it actually looks like in reality versus what I thought when I was a kid. Do you remember calling people that were 35 years old? Do you
Oh my
remember
gosh.
feeling like they were super ancient?
I remember being in high school and or let's say even younger than that, like let go into when you're in middle school and you take a tour of the high school,
Mm-hmm.
those seniors, they were so mature and old. And like, I thought that they were just like, oh my gosh, they have this life. They can drive. They probably have jobs. Like, they talk on the phone with their friends and like they have this freedom. You know what I mean? They were like 16, 17 years old. And I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
they're like the oldest, wisest freaking people. So
Mm-hmm.
it's relative, guys. It's relative.
I so remember having that feeling too. And until you said it again with not, you don't know what you don't know. I
Right.
didn't realized that, you know what, that stuck with me too. And
Mhm.
I kind of felt that way too as I was approaching
Oh,
those
yeah.
milestone ages. Just kind of interesting. But anyway, here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are once again at the end of what I I always feel it's a very valuable conversation, but there was a lot of meat in this one.
This was meaty.
And it was very meaty. And I'm very excited to. So, after when we do these episodes and we pull an anonymous post and we
Mhm.
talk about that, because sometimes we do that, I'll go. I don't know if I told you this, but I'll go and I'll share the link on that post
Oh,
so that the anonymous member can see that she was the chosen one that month, and
yeah.
in hopes that it's helpful to her, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
know who they are.
Mhm.
That's
They're
remains
anonymous.
anonymous no matter what. Exactly. But I just have done that over the last, I don't know, year or so, and it's been really helpful for those moms. So I hope
That's
that
great.
this is helpful for her again. And a lot of people out there that I know feel can relate with her at some degree.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I hope this helpful, and I always do. That's why we do it
Yeah.
every time.
And if you'd like to check out our last, what, 2.5 years now, Laura?
I know. There's
Uh,
like 22 episodes.
there's a lot over on our YouTube channel. It is at MOMnation USA. That is our handle. You can scroll down just a little ways. You will see the mental wealth playlist. That is Laura and I for the last, like she said, 22 episodes. And there are great episodes. There's a lot of little tasty bits in there, guys, that I know you will benefit from if you haven't familiarized yourself with them already. If you prefer the podcast version, then on your favorite podcast platform, quick search for MOMnation Talk Radio, and there you can connect with us. Thank you again, Laura.
Thank you so, so much, as always.
Bye, guys.
Bye.